Hey YouTube, your LDM here. I was just thinking today about races in D&D. So I was thinking that it's relatively easy to play a human because you are a human, and so you know what it's like to be a human. Um, and obviously, the human living in a fantasy world filled with monsters is not the same as the human that you are, but it's still a human. It's relatable. Similarly, I think something like a half human, probably more relatable. Although when you mix it with an orc, not so much. The point I'm trying to make is that playing something like an elf who lives a couple of hundred years, or like a dwarf who lives for a couple of hundred years, is a totally different way of growing up than you do. I think it's very hard to actually play that. So, like, if you're an elf and you've grown up in a city made of trees, and you didn't leave until you were 120 years old, you've already lived more of a life than most humans ever will. In fact, than any human ever had so far, probably. Maybe. Don't quote me on that. Um, so, like, think of the experience that you have, how confident you would be in everything that you do by the time you're 120 if your body was still perfect and your mind was still sharp. You could have mastered things that humans just don't have time to do. If you had lived 120 years before you ever leave the town you grew up in, you could have learned to master an instrument, master your fighting style, master anything you want. You have all this time. You have all this time to learn and become a genius, basically. Um, So how do you bring that across when you play an elf? When I do it, play elves as incredibly snotty and aloof and impatient with humans who are just these flitty little excitable things. When you live for a couple of hundred years, you can take time to think before you act, and you can take time to make a plan, and you can take time to think about the greater nature of the universe. Um, Similarly, with dwarves, you live underground, most likely. You spend all your time mining and crafting, and you live for a long time as well. So you're quite old by the time you leave. All these values and all this time will change you a lot. So I think playing an elf who's like a human, it's not really accurate. Doesn't make sense to me. Um, Halflings, yeah. Halflings to me are hobbits from Lord of the Rings. And so I see them as kind of like adventure seeking, nice little people. Gnomes, I find a bit silly, but they're kind of smart, tinkery, that kind of thing. I think half orcs are interesting. I think half elves are really boring. Um, but the main thing I'm talking about here is the long lived races and how different your outlook on life would be compared to a human. So yep, that's it. Let me know what you think. If it's just rubbish, let me know. Just around.